So, Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuramridchandrena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. All right, let's do this. Sat Goswami Astakam verse 2. Nana Shastra Vicharana Eka Nipuna Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandina Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. Someone please read the translation.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jeev Goswami, and Shri Gopal Bhatt Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna.
Jai, thank you. Then we'll say this verse. This is the 3rd of your memorization verses. Tata Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Grayam Indriyai Sevan Mukhehi Jivado Swayam Eva Spuratyada. And translation?
Because Krishna's form, qualities, pastimes, etc. are all on the absolute platform, material senses cannot therefore appreciate them. When a conditioned soul is awakened to Krishna consciousness and renders service by using his tongue to chant the holy name, to chant the Lord's holy name, and taste the remnants of the Lord's food, the tongue is purified and one gradually comes to understand who Krishna really is.
Jai, thank you. Such a nice verse. Yeah, so this is telling us how to engage the senses, starting with the tongue, by chanting, by taking Krishna prasadam. And by those 2 things, our dormant Krishna consciousness becomes awakened, and Krishna becomes very inclined towards us, and out of his grace, he reveals himself to us gradually. Okay. So today we're covering chapters 10 and 11 of the Nectar of Devotion. These are techniques of hearing and remembering Krishna, and 11 aspects of transcendental service. So we're continuing to go through the explanations of 64 items, and chapter 10 covers 43 to 46. In these items that we'll cover today in chapters 10 and 11, we get a lot of the 9 processes of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So yesterday we did Kirtanam. Today we're going to do Shravanam. That's the first one. We're going to look at Smaranam, remembrance. And then later there's Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. Yesterday we looked at Archanam. And yeah, so within these 64 items of devotional service naturally are the 9 processes of devotional service. So beginning with hearing, Shravanam. So it's nice that this chapter 10 starts with hearing because everything starts from hearing. Without hearing, we wouldn't be here. And if we don't continue to hear, we're not going to be here. Aradhya Gadadhar Prabhu?
Mataji, generally we see that whenever there is such topic on hearing, generally it is accompanied by chanting and hearing and chanting. But I mean, this is first time we saw. Of course, only in NOD that we see hearing and remembering is being the title of the chapter. So if you could just brief on this thing.
You're wondering why they're not right next to each other here? Shravanam Kirtanam?
Yeah, I mean, why it's not hearing and chanting? I mean, it's hearing and remembering. Shravanam,
Technique of hearing and
Smaranam.
remembering. Yeah. I mean, here you have to hear. Without hearing, you won't be able to remember because you won't, you can only remember something that you know about. If you don't know it by hearing, then you won't remember anything, right? Like now, because I know you, after the class, I might think of you, right? Like, oh, Prabhu Aradhya Gadadhar made such a good comment in class that was very enlightened. I might remember that. But if I never was your teacher, I didn't know that you existed, I'm never going to remember you. So it's only because I heard something that you said that I have something to remember, right? So
Yes, Mataji.
we need to hear in order to remember. And if we don't remember, how are we going to chant? How are we going to say anything? So then,
Sure.
like, now that I know you, because you've said some things, I've heard from you, then if I meet somebody else, I could say, oh yeah, there's this devotee in New Delhi, Radhat Gadadhar, he's in my class, and he made this really good point today in class. And, like that, then I can talk, I have something to talk about. So in the same way, we need to hear about Krishna so that we can remember Krishna and have something to talk about in relation to Krishna. Without hearing, there's nothing at all. But even like in order for kirtan, there has to be remembering first. So we hear and we remember what we hear, and then we can say it. Otherwise, if you hear and you forget everything that you heard, it's in one ear, out the other, then you still won't be able to say anything, right? You might have had this experience that you hear a class, right? And then you sat there, you heard the whole class. And then afterwards at breakfast prasadam time, one devotee who couldn't make it to the class is there, and he said, oh, what was the class about today? And you're like, you can't remember a thing, right? Sometimes that happens to me, just like at the time when you were in the class, it was so interesting, it was very engaging, you thought it was a great class, but you can't remember anything. You just, I just remember it was a really good class. I'm sorry, Philip. You know what I mean? So we need to hear and we need to remember. Otherwise, we can't say anything. Even after hearing, if we don't remember, we can't say anything.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji.
All right. And ultimately, the kirtan is good because if there's no kirtanam, then there's not going to be any shravanam. So somebody has to be speaking in order for hearing to take place, right? So which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's like that. Which comes first, the shravanam or the kirtanam? Somebody had to hear so that they could chant, but then for that person to hear, someone else had to chant. So it all starts, it's kind of beginningless. Because it starts from Krishna, the original speaker. Okay, and Krishna doesn't have to hear because he knows everything already without hearing. So hearing. Prabhupada says that, the beginning of Krishna consciousness and devotional service is hearing. And he goes straight into like mood and mission. In the next sentence, all people should be given the chance to come and join devotional parties so that they may hear. And in the Nectar of Instruction also, he says that we started this Krishna consciousness movement just to create basically a venue where people can come together and hear and chant about Krishna. So that's the purpose of our temples. That's the purpose of all of our classes like this, of Namahatas, Bhakti Vrikshas, festivals, Kirtan Melas, everything. It's all just to create different scenarios where people can come and hear about Krishna. So that's the Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission, and that's what we have to carry out, is just create so many programs where people can come and hear about Krishna, because just by hearing, it starts to already awaken. It starts to awaken our dormant Krishna consciousness. It cleanses the heart. That's what he's talking about here, that when one links his ears to give oral reception to the transcendental vibrations, he can quickly become purified and cleansed in the heart. Quotes Lord Chaitanya here, Chaito Darpana Marjanam Baba Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. The heart becomes cleaned by this. And then he gives this, in the second paragraph, he gives an analogy from the Garuda Purana. Can anyone explain that analogy?
Can you repeat which analogy?
In the second paragraph of chapter 10, it's from the Garuda Purana about the man who gets bitten by a snake.
Yes,
This
Mataji.
story that says that snake is responsible for that. Then says Kal is responsible. Then says Mrityu is responsible. Then ultimately Imraj says that the person activities are themselves responsible for his being killed by a snake.
Wait, what? I didn't quite get that.
Like the person was beaten by a snake, and then he said this snake should be punished. Then the snake said, "It's my nature. Why should I be punished?" Then he said, then the Mrityu personified should be punished. He said, "It's not my mistake. I did what Kal asked me to do." And Kal said,
that's another one. That's not the one that's given here.
Okay.
That's another snake story. What's the one that Prabhupada mentions here in the second paragraph of chapter 10? And really, this is specifically in relation to hearing, the power of hearing. Somebody else.
Mr. John, that person is sleeping and is being ready to be killed by someone. That thing you are referring to.
Okay, yeah, that's another thing that Prabhupada says, is that if a person is sleeping and there's a fire in the house, right? He doesn't see the fire. He doesn't, he's not going to wake up. The eyes are closed. You can do this in front of his face. He's not going to wake up. But if you say his name, then immediately there's some sound. That's why we wake up to an alarm clock that makes some sound, because sound revives us. Can anyone else say this analogy?
So it says that when a man is snake bitten, he does not die immediately, but first he becomes unconscious and then he goes into a comatose condition. And anyone who is in the material world is also sleeping because they're ignorant of their actual self or the duty and relationship with God. So materialistic life means that one is bitten by the snake of Maya illusion, and thus without any Krishna consciousness is almost dead. So the so-called dead man bitten by a snake can be brought back to life by the chanting of a mantra.
Okay, so similarly, we are here in the material world, deeply covered by illusion, to the extent that our real spiritual life is totally forgotten. We don't even know who we are in actuality. But that life, our real life, can be revived by hearing the Maha Mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, that can gradually bring us back from this. Prabhupada says, deadly unconscious state of material life. That's the condition we're in. We're in a deadly unconscious state here in the material world. So yeah, so it revives our real life, because this is not our real life. We're not these bodies. This place where we live is not our home. These people who we think are our friends are not our real friends. Our families are not our real family members. things that we do are not our real activities, and we're just in a complete illusion as to who we are. We just haven't got a clue. But by hearing from Srila Prabhupada and devotees, we understand that we all have an eternal constitutional position as servants of Krishna in the spiritual world, and we're hoping that one day that will be revealed to us so that we know who we actually are. We all have another name, another form, other personal qualities, other activities that have very little or nothing to do with what we're doing now, except the activities of devotional service that we're engaging in, like chanting and hearing, remembering that. Those things will go on. But all the externals are going to change. And that's revealed by hearing. And that's what the verse from the Bhagavatam says, Srimad Bhagavatam 2.8.5. Pravishta karnarandrena swanam bhava suroraham. Dhunoti shamalam Krishna salilasya yata sharat. That pravishta karnarandrena, when the transcendental sound enters into the holes of the ears, so that's hearing, the sound vibrations going into the ears, then Dhunoti shamalam, it cleans all the dirty things away from the heart. And then swanam bhava suroruham. That swanam means your own, one's own bhav, one's own mood or constitutional relationship with Krishna is revealed. Swanam bhava suroruham. And that suroruham, it's like a lotus flower. It's like, it's not of this world. Totally transcendental. So like the lotus, we often hear the lotus grows in the water, but it doesn't touch the water. So it's in the world, but not of the world. So this Swanam Bhava Suroruham, this constitutional relationship we have with Krishna is not of this world, but we can experience it even when we are in this world by sufficient hearing that arises, that knowledge and identification with our real identity arises within the heart by hearing. And then, Salilasya Yatav Sharat. So this verse talks about how in the rainy season, there's pools of little puddles of water all over. And when the rain is falling very hard, then it makes the dirt from the ground mix with the water, and it becomes like very cloudy. It's full of the little pools are full of sediment. But then later, when the autumn season comes, then there's not heavy rain. There may be some light showers, and those light showers have the effect of pushing down the sediment that's come up and making all the muddy murkiness go to the bottom again. And then it's a very clear, transparent water. So right now our consciousness is muddy. It's all, mucked up with material things. So, but this hearing is like rain. It's like a shower, light, gentle, pure shower of rain that just makes all the dirtiness in the consciousness go down. And then our consciousness becomes clear, becomes transparent. And through that transparent consciousness, with that clear consciousness, we can perceive who we actually are. So that's the process of awakening our dormant Krishna consciousness by hearing. And then Prabhupada makes the point that we need to hear from the right person. That, he always condemns these professional Bhagavatam reciters, that we should not hear from them. It's people, in India, you see it all the time. Here in the West, we don't have that, but, like hardly no one's making a living reciting the Bhagavatam. But in the West, they do these big dramas, like especially in Vrindavan, different holy places, these people come and they put up these huge billboards, right? Bhagavat Saptaha, and they come with all their musicians and their drama troupe and everything, the lights and camera and action, and they put on a whole show of, usually Rasa Leela, different, 10th canto pastimes of Krishna. And then at the end, they pack up their stuff and go away. But in the meantime, they collect a lot of donations. So these are professional Bhagavatam reciters. He says hearing from them will not help. So even though they're reciting the Bhagavatam, but still it's not, because they're not pure, then we become subtly affected by their impurities. So we need to really hear from devotees who are really very much devoted, Narayana Parayana, that they're sold out to Krishna. Their life is just, I'm a servant of Krishna, and I'm just here to deliver the message of Krishna, and I don't have any motivation. That's it, I'm just the servant of Krishna. Okay, and by such hearing, we become attracted to Krishna's activities. So Prabhupada writes here that in the material world, everyone is engaged in the illusory activities of the inferior energy, particularly in relation to hearing. That like Shukadeva Goswami says in the beginning of the second canto, that famous verse, Shota Vyadini Rajendra, Nrinam Santi Sahasrashaha, Apashyatam Atmatatvam, Priheshu Grihamedinam. So, Shrotavadini Rajendra, Nrinam Santa Sahasrashaha. Materialistic people have hundreds and thousands of subject matters for hearing. But all that hearing is just basically drinking poison through the ears, because whatever goes in the ears, it goes to the heart. There's a subtle channel, like a nadi that goes from the ear to the heart. So that sound goes in, and whatever it is, it affects the condition of our heart. So if materialistic sound goes in there, and it just poisons the heart. It increases our material entanglement. So everyone has a propensity to hear something, and this materialistic world just takes advantage of that propensity by delivering so many things for us to hear in the form of mundane music and videos and movies and all kinds of just nonsense sound vibration out there that just poisons our consciousness. So we need to flood that out. We need to drown that out. We need to drown that out with so much positive Krishna conscious sound vibration, and utilize this propensity to hear for our ultimate good. Okay, yeah, and then by hearing about Krishna's activities, then we become attracted. It says that when one is given the opportunity to relish the activities of the superior energy performed by Krishna, then he forgets all his lesser pleasures. So by hearing about Krishna, we get the higher taste, and we're no longer interested in these mundane sound vibrations. Yes, Aradhya Gadadhar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, like you were telling regarding, hearing from the professional reciters.
Yeah.
So of course, being devotees, we should hear from devotees only. But regarding the people who are totally not at all into spirituality, if through this medium of listening from professional reciters, at least they are able to hear something from Bhagavatam and they are able to hear the names of Krishna. So for them who are totally out of spirituality, for them also it won't be of any benefit, is it?
I mean, if somebody's just totally not on a spiritual path, and then they go for some entertainment, but they hear the name of Krishna, then of course there's always a benefit in hearing the name of Krishna. But he's talking about people who are already practicing Krishna consciousness, right? Like in the beginning of Nectar Devotion, Prabhupada established who is the audience here. Who is the Nectar Devotion written for? It's written for those who are already engaged in the Krishna consciousness movement. So the instructions here are for us, that we should not go and hear from such people, no matter how entertaining it may be, no matter how excellent the musicians are, or the actors or the singers or whatever, but that's not for us. So I'm not saying that it's totally bad. Any connection to Krishna Bhagavatam there's going to be some benefit, but it's not for us.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go.
But Mataji, one thing we read that Prabhupada mentions that while quoting Sanatan Goswami, that hearing from professional reciters is like drinking milk which has already been touched by a serpent.
Yeah.
So is that only for devotees, or like normal people also hearing that is not recommended, hearing professional reciters?
Yeah. I mean, it's not great, but I'm just thinking of how, there's some devotees that there's some movies like, there's one movie that came out, I think in the 60s, or it must have been the 70s. It was actually like a musical called Hair. I never watched it, but apparently there's like a scene where some devotees are there doing kirtan. And then there's this other musician, Boy George, who sings a song, Bow Down, Mr. Hare Hare Krishna. So these people are completely materialistic and just like really not people of good character. But somehow or other, there are devotees who got introduced to Krishna consciousness through these mediums. So yeah, it's just like if somebody wrote an article about the devotees, and even if it was a negative article, even if it was completely blasphemous and critical, but if the name of Krishna was mentioned many times, then Srila Prabhupada would be happy. So, I mean, it's a little inconceivable, even though the poison may be there. Somehow it's maybe not enough to kill you. So let's say if you're starving, if you're going to die of starvation, and somebody gives you a glass of milk that has a little bit of poison in it, you drink the milk, and the nourishment that you get from the milk saves your life. Although the poison makes you a little sick, it doesn't kill you, so you're still alive. So you didn't die of starvation, and you didn't die from the poison. You're still alive. Somehow or other, you got something from it, right? So for people who have nothing, who are just like dying due to starvation, due to lack of Krishna consciousness, they can get some little nourishment from that hearing from these not very good sources, but at the same time, it's making them sick, so they didn't die, but they're not healthy either. So the best, but if you're like, for us, we're not starving, so we don't have to drink that. We're not going to die by not hearing that. You know what I mean? Like, we have a good supply of milk that's not poison. That's like, good milk from devotee cows and very nourishing. So we can drink that. We don't need to take from others. Is that clear?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Let's see what else I have. Hearing. Yeah, so this is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Hearing means listening to the name, pastimes, and qualities of the Lord. All these things. Okay. And then, so then the next thing, expecting the Lord's mercy. So in hearing, because I was talking about how we're really in a mess here in the material world, that we've totally forgotten not only Krishna, but even everything about our real selves. And so in hearing, we really need to be praying for Krishna's mercy, because this awakening of our Krishna consciousness, awakening of realization of our constitutional position, we can't do it ourselves. There's no amount of even hearing or performing 64 items of devotional service that can make that happen without Krishna's mercy. So we're totally dependent on Krishna's mercy, but we should be confident that if I do these things, Krishna will be merciful. Krishna will purify my heart. Krishna will deliver me. And he quotes this verse, which is a very famous verse, which Srila Prabhupada says should be the guide for all devotees. Tate nukampam susamikshamano bhunjana evatma kritam vipakam vidvagvapur bhir vidadhan namaste jivetayo mukti pade sadaya bhak. Somebody like to read the translation, please?
My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past mischief, and offering the respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim.
Yes. Let's read the purport to this verse is so beautiful and important that let's read. I have the whole thing here. We can just go ahead and read this.
Sridhar Swami explains in his commentary that just as a legitimate son has to simply remain alive to gain an inheritance from his father, one who simply remains alive in Krishna consciousness, following the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, automatically becomes eligible to receive the mercy of the personality of Godhead. In other words, he will be promoted to the kingdom of God. The word Sikshamana indicates that a devotee earnestly awaits the mercy of the Supreme Lord even while suffering the painful effects of previous sinful activities. Lord Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that a devotee who fully surrenders onto him is no longer liable to suffer the reactions of his previous karma. However, because in his mind a devotee may still maintain the remnants of his previous sinful mentality, the Lord removes the last vestige of the enjoying spirit by giving his devotee punishments that may sometimes resemble sinful reactions.
Go ahead.
The purpose of the entire creation of God is to rectify the living entity's tendency to enjoy without the Lord. And therefore, the particular punishment given for a sinful activity is specifically designed to curtail the mentality that produced the activity. Although a devotee has surrendered to the Lord's devotional service until he is completely perfect in Krishna consciousness, he may maintain a slight inclination to enjoy the false happiness of this world. The Lord therefore creates a particular situation to eradicate this remaining enjoying spirit. This unhappiness suffered by a sincere devotee is not technically a karmic reaction. It is rather the Lord's special mercy for inducing his devotees to completely let go of the material world and return home back to Godhead. A sincere devotee honestly desires to go back to the Lord's abode. Therefore, he willingly accepts the Lord's merciful punishment and continues offering respects and obeisances to the Lord with his heart, words, and body. Such a bona fide servant of the Lord, considering all hardships, a small price to pay for gaining the personal association of the Lord, certainly becomes a legitimate son of God, as indicated here by the words Daya Bhakt. Just as one cannot approach the sun without becoming fire, one cannot approach the supreme pure Lord Krishna without undergoing a rigid purificatory process, which may appear like suffering, but which is in fact a curative treatment administered by the personal hand of the Lord.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, this is one of my favorite purports in the Bhagavatam. It's so helpful. And I mean, Prabhupada says it should be the guide of all devotees. And really, it's something that we need to remind ourselves of every day. Because every day we come up against some difficulties. You know, material life is full of difficulties. And we should understand why we're facing difficulties. Sometimes small, sometimes very big problems come up in our lives. And for devotees, you know, assuming that we're surrendered to Krishna and dedicated to this mission of, you know, achieving the purpose of life by going back home, back to Godhead, reinstating ourselves as eternal servants of Krishna, then everything that happens is done by Krishna. It's no longer karma. But as it says here, it may resemble karma because the reason that we have that karma, the reason that we have those sinful reactions, that we would be having those sinful reactions is because we did a particular activity for which the reaction is meant to, you know, change our consciousness. So the thing is that we're doing devotional service, but we still have the mentality, we still have a little bit of that, the same desires that produce the sinful activity. So that still needs to be removed. And there's different ways that it can be removed. And one thing is, just by very diligently following the processes of devotional service, hearing, chanting, and those. And the other way is through suffering. So you could say it's kind of like the easy way or the hard way, right? It's like when I remember when I was a small child, there were some foods that I didn't like to eat, right? Like, let's say there's a certain vegetable that I didn't like to eat. So my father would always tell me, you can either eat it the easy way or the hard way. So easy way was that I voluntarily ate it. Hard way was that he was going to come and force it into my mouth and make me swallow it, which he sometimes did. So yeah, and that way I learned to eat vegetables and everything. So yeah, so we have to, there are things that we just have to learn, and this human form of life is meant for learning a lot. We have a lot to learn, and we will either learn it the easy way or the hard way. So the easy way is by just being told, we hear in the scriptures, we hear in classes, we hear from our spiritual masters and other devotees that material life is suffering, that, sense gratification is a source of misery, and all this. But we keep doing it. So then we're not doing it easy then. So then, okay, well, I tried to tell you, you're not following. So now it has to be the hard way. And the hard way is that we do those things and we have to get some kind of suffering as a result. So for devotees, that suffering is given specifically to get us to let go, to get us to, so because there are certain things that we're attached to, we're like holding on to. So then Krishna sees, he's watching us. Krishna is always overseeing everyone, but especially his devotees. And he sees that he knows exactly what we're attached to. And he knows those attachments which are impediments to our devotional service. So if we have some little thing that we're clinging to that we know is unfavorable for our Krishna consciousness, but we can't let go of it, Krishna's going to be like, okay, you like that? Well, let's see, let's see how much you really like it. And then he might make that whole thing just go really bad. Like you're attached to a particular relationship, like a friendship with a person who's not a devotee, who's actually not a good influence on you, then he'll do something that person is going to just totally like turn on you and stab you in the back and, be horrible. And, like, so that you can just be like, all right, I get it, Krishna, this person is not good for me. I need to just let it go. I need to distance myself. So like that. Or things, or whatever habits that we have. And so a person that's very advanced in Krishna consciousness, a person who's on the level of bhava, they can see the naked face of Maya. They can see exactly what Maya is and what it's doing to them. But at the stage that we're at the stage of sadhana bhakti, we can't see it. We still see Maya and think it's nice. We still think that Maya is something desirable because we don't see it for what it is or for what it does to us. Ras Raman Krishna Baru?
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna. I have a question. According to this purport, which you have read just now, I have a question regarding this only. A devotee is there, and devotee is very advanced devotee, and performing everything, every limb of the devotional service very fine, in a very well-planned manner. So, like a day or two back, or a couple of days back, you were showing us a line graph of chanting 16 rounds and following 4 regulative principles, something like borderline and going above the borderline, something like that. So even in devotional service, while a devotee is performing devotional services, even then in the material life, sometimes problems arise, like in family or in business or in job, anything. Problem can crop up from anywhere. Okay, so devotee tries to think. Devotees try to think that these are the reactions of my sinful actions done in the past, in the previous lives, or like that. So according to this purport, but it's not always. It's not
Mhm.
always. Sometimes Lord Krishna gives us some punishments also to
Yeah.
us to just remove the enjoying spirit from within us. So should we take that this way always?
Yeah, I mean, we can take it both ways. That
Okay.
it's because of my activities that I have this mentality. It's because of my activities that I have this attachment. And so
Okay.
Krishna's giving me this suffering in order to change my mentality, in order to get me to let go of the attachment.
Okay.
But this is it's Krishna's mercy. It's
Okay.
my fault, it's my karma, it's my fault that I have this problem. But it's
Okay.
Krishna's mercy that he's making me suffer so that I can let go of the problem. I can be
Okay. So Mataji, my question is exactly, crispy question is like that. So how shall we come to know that whatever the situation we are in, which we don't like, which we don't prefer, so that is because of our sinful action done in the past, or it is because of the Krishna's mild punishment which is being given to us for removing our enjoying spirit? How shall we make the difference between these two?
Yeah, it can be either or it can be a combination of both.
Okay.
It's hard to tell. But in any case, even karmic reactions are also Krishna's mercy.
Okay.
That's how Krishna shows his mercy to non-devotees, is through
Okay.
karma.
Okay.
Otherwise, if people could just do sinful activities again and again, so many sinful activities, and never get any punishment for them,
Okay.
then that's not helping them.
Okay.
Like if you're a parent and you have a child and the child does something wrong and you don't punish them, that's not good parenting.
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
Parenting means you give them some punishment so that they learn, so that they become a good person.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Mataji. Thank you so much.
All right, Rasraman Krishna, is that from before your hand up, or you have another thing to say?
No, Mataji, my question is clear. I'm just lowering my hand now.
Okay. All right, good.
Just a small question.
Yes.
Mataji, we see sometimes devotees performing bhakti and chanting 16 rounds and following 4-hour periods. So after a certain period of time, we see that like devotees are out from the path of the bhakti, and they are not able to see more than in the temple and all. So so how can we see this situation? Is it the mercy of the Lord, or what it is? How can we see the situation? They are not flowing like, yeah.
Well, mercy of the Lord, in that case, the mercy of the Lord is that they're going to suffer due to their non-devotional activities. So then, this verse is for devotees. So for devotees, then the sufferings and enjoyments, whatever we experience, is tailored. It's like a custom made. It's like custom tailor made for us by Krishna. Okay, by Krishna personally. But then someone who's not a devotee, then their experience it's indirectly made by Krishna, but it happens through the laws of nature. But somebody who practiced devotional service before and then left, their situation is different from someone who never practiced devotional service, because Krishna doesn't forget. Krishna is very grateful. That's one of his 64 transcendental qualities, is that he's grateful. So anybody who rendered any service whatsoever, Krishna never, he doesn't forget them. He never really lets go of them. So it may be actually, when devotees fall down from Krishna consciousness and go back to the material world, their experience is going to be different from somebody who wasn't a devotee. Yeah. In some cases, they will suffer even more. Like, they'll really hit rock bottom, because Krishna is going to show them like, are you crazy? Like, how could you ever leave me? So like, not this again. Didn't you learn your lesson once? And then they come, crawling back. So yeah, that happens a lot. I've seen that.
Thank you so much.
Otherwise, somebody who started and maybe was never really very into it, but they somehow associated with devotees, did a little service here and there and then left, then it may be the opposite for them, that it just kind of got translated into like piety. They got a similar reaction to doing pious activities, and then they'll have a really good material life, and that's also Krishna's mercy in another way. But somebody who is really serious, very sincere, when they leave, Krishna really lets them have it. Sometimes people just breeze in, do a little service, they like Krishna, but they really want to have a nice material life. Then they go back and Krishna gives them a good material life, and they think that it's Krishna's mercy.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, there's a difference. Just like when, in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that one who practiced devotional service for a short time, they go to the heavenly planets, they have a great material life for many years, and then they come back, they're born in a family of, rich people or whatever. But it's different for somebody who practiced for a long time. They don't go to heavenly planet. They don't enjoy material life. They take birth in a family of transcendentalists, and they start again, like, discipline, bhakti.
Mataji,
Even in this life.
Mataji, is there any logic behind this, that people who will service only for a short period would be in a way treated slightly better than people who are in longer devotional service?
Well, you think it's better. It's not better at all. How is it better? They have to stay in the material world longer.
No, they go to
heaven for all the going to heaven for like 100 years of the demigods, when you could go back to Godhead in one short human lifetime on earth.
Okay. Yeah.
This looks better from like a material point of view, but from a spiritual point of view, it's like, I don't want to enjoy in this material world anymore. This so-called enjoyment in this material world is not enjoyment at all. Not for the soul.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, so then remembrance. Oh, I think there's one more thing here. Oh yeah. So here's a quote from the Bhagavad that shows that even if a devotee is suffering, they accept that Krishna knows best, and the suffering is for their own good. So yeah, Priya is basically saying that you're like my father, that just like a father not waiting for the son's demand does everything for the benefit of the son, please bestow upon me whatever you think is best for me. So this should be our prayer to Krishna, that, not give me this, give me that, but just give me, what's best for me. You know what's best. And so just, you give me whatever you think is right, and give me the strength to accept it. Because Krishna knows better what is best for us more than we know ourselves. We think we know what we need and what will be good, but we really are sometimes very confused and bewildered by Maya. Okay, so then remembering. So remembering is somehow or other connecting our mind to Krishna. And this is different from the next one, which is meditation. Meditation means to contemplate with absorption on the Lord's form, qualities, pastimes, and service. So remembering is just, somehow or other just connecting the mind to Krishna. And I wanted to share something here with you from the 11th canto. Do I have it? Let's see if I have it, otherwise I'll forget it. Oh, it's not appearing here in my options. Well. Anyways, you can look sometime in the 11th canto. Chapter 23 is the song of the Avanti Brahmin. So the Avanti Brahmin there, he's realizing that all these sufferings and enjoyments in the material world are anyways just, they're all in the mind. They're all due to the controlled mind, to the uncontrolled mind. And so if we can just, like Prabhupada says here, some way or other, someone establishes in his mind his continuous relationship with Krishna, this relationship is called remembrance. So this is about just connecting the mind to Krishna. Somehow they're fixing the mind to Krishna and having confidence that Krishna will help us do that. Again, expecting the Lord's mercy that he'll help us to do that, and that we can always remain absorbed in him. And then meditating on Krishna, then that's taking it to another level. So this is when we're, after hearing the pastimes of Krishna, we don't just recollect what it was, but we really try to like go deeply into it. And the example here is given of the South Indian Brahmin. Does anyone want to tell that story here that Prabhupada narrates about the South Indian Brahmin?
Mataji, can I try?
Sure, go ahead, please.
Thank you. There was when Mahaprabhu went to South India, there was a Brahman who was not literate, but his guru said him to read the Bhagavad Gita daily. As he was illiterate, so the nearby people who used to see him reading Bhagavad Gita and they know that he is not literate, they used to make fun of him. But when he was not literate, but as it was the instruction of his guru to read, so he used to read. And when he even before starting reading, when he used to see just a front page of Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna is so very merciful that he accepted to be a Sarathi of Arjuna. Arjuna, and it is so difficult to be a Sarathi because the person who is sitting on the chariot will not say you to go right or to go to left, to go to straight. He will just kick you from the back. And Krishna is the God of universe. He accepted to be a Sarathi of his devotees. So his love for devotees is so much that he can do anything. So when he used to see this picture, he used to feel all that and he used to cry a lot. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw him feeling all these things, he said that your reading Bhagavad Gita is done. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced that Brahmana and said, and then by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he got all the intelligence, and henceforward he was able to read Bhagavad Gita also.
All right, that's a great story, but that's not the one. That's not the one that's here in this chapter. I'm starting to think that you are all very nice devotees, but you're not doing your homework. But I ask for example, you have to give the one from the chapter here. So does anyone else know the South Indian Brahmin that Prabhupada mentions in this section on meditation and chapter 10 of the Nectar of Devotion?
Sorry, Mataji, I know that also, but if anybody says, then I will not. Sorry.
Okay, so you don't have to read these sections here.
Mataji, can I tell, please?
Yes, please.
Mataji, I've read it, but I can't say it line by line, but I can give the idea or in a brief what was said.
That's what I want. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the South Indian Brahmana used to worship Lord, but he didn't have the physical objects to worship the Lord. What he used to do is to think about worshiping the Lord, like how by offering different articles or the worshipping materials he is doing like aarti, he is doing offering something, food and so on. It goes on in this manner, and one day suddenly he was thinking, he was meditating on how he is offering Lord some sweet rice preparation. And while offering, he had a thought like this sweet rice preparation is very hot. So he thought, okay, is it too hot? With that it will burn Lord's tongue or mouth. So he just touched it and checked it whether it is hot or not. Immediately, as he touched it, he had a, like, I don't know the exact English term, but it's like some burn in his finger. He got a burn in his finger, and then what happened? When Lord was sleeping in Vaikuntha with many of his Lakshmi serving and attending him, and Lord started to love very much. And the Lakshmis who were serving him became like, oh, what? Why Lord is smiling? Everyone was thinking. Lord didn't answer and asked, and immediately sent a plane to reach to the place and received Brahmana and brought him straight to the Vaikuntha. Then Lord narrated the whole incidents to the different Lakshmis. And as a result of this meditation, constant meditating, serving the Lord by meditation, we can see how the Brahmana obtained the Vaikuntha Loka, or the kingdom of the Lord, and Lord gave him permanent residence and service in his own place. Is it? Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's the one that I was looking for. So yeah, so this Brahmin heard that you don't have to actually do all the things physically, but you can just meditate on it. So he went in this whole meditation. And in his meditation, he was able to, not just get water from the river or from the tap, but he was able to get water from, all the holy rivers like the Ganga, the Yamuna, the Sarasvati, and instead of offering just in some stainless steel pots, he was offering in gold pots. Instead of just offering some local marigold flowers or something, he was offering, blue lotus flowers. In his mind, there was no limit, to what he could actually offer, and the quality that he could, of paraphernalia that he could collect. So he was doing that, and then like Gaura Prabhu said, he actually burnt his finger testing the sweet rice was too hot. So then let's experiment with this. We can do a little Manasa Seva. So everybody think of the particular form of Krishna which you're most attracted to. Krishna has different ages, so maybe some of you like a baby Krishna, like Gopal Krishna, a lot of Gopal Krishna, or maybe you like Krishna when he's a young boy, like doing some boyish pranks, stealing butter and things like that. Or Krishna when he's a little older and he goes out to take care of the cows and he's playing with his friends. Or Krishna like Yugala Kishore, where he's dancing with the gopis and he's more like in the full bloom youth, like that. Or even Krishna in Dwarka when he's like more like a young man, the king of Dwarka, or in the Battle of Kurukshetra. So whatever form of Krishna that you particularly are attracted to, just in your mind, you can just close your eyes. Everybody close your eyes and visualize in your mind, in your mind's eye, that form of the Lord that you really like. And then imagine a scenario. So it's not just Krishna in space, but there's a whole scenario there that's going on. Whatever the form is, the appropriate scenario, the place where he is, the surroundings, the other people, other devotees who are also there in relationship with him. And then try to imagine what's going on. What are people saying? What is Krishna doing? What is the pastime that's taking place? And then just imagine that you are there within that pastime and you're offering some service. So you can do whatever service you want to do. So just think of what service would you really like to do for Krishna in that situation. And then you can gather all the ingredients that you need for that service. You get the best ingredients from the universe, from anywhere in the universe. And then there you have them. And then you're using that, you're making something or doing something or offering something to Krishna in that form. And then you can also imagine how you're feeling, how Krishna is looking at you, how he's reciprocating with your service. So just take a minute and try to enter deeply into some detail in that kind of meditation. Okay. So you can just come out of your meditation. I'm sorry if I interrupted it too soon when you were just getting to the good part. But was everyone able to have a meditation and do some service for Krishna in that meditation?
Yeah, so can I tell you my experience, Mataji? I feel very emotional when I think about the Krishna that I really love, which is the Punjabi Bagh temple in Delhi, which I'm associated to. I'm very far off from Radha Radhika Ramanji, so I feel very emotional. So currently I'm very emotional thinking about him. And especially what I feel that I'm never able to do is to enter the kitchen where his food is made because I'm not initiated. So I long for that day. So when you said that, think of a service, I always feel that I cook and then feed him myself. It's, I don't know when it's going to happen. So it's just tough. I'm.
Well,
Yeah.
it just happened. This Manasa Seva is not it's not imagination. It's actually substantive. It's actually real service. Krishna accepts the service that we do in our minds. He accepts it as real service. So you can do it anytime, any place.
Yeah.
Rasraman Krishna Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna. Mataji, I was thinking of Dwarka Krishna, Lord Krishna in Dwarka as a king. And Sudama Brahman approaches him hesitatingly. And how Lord Krishna embraces Sudama Brahman and brings him into his palace, and how he serves him along with his queens. So I was imagining that I was there and I was looking at Lord Krishna, how he was doing everything for Sudama. I used to think that Lord Krishna is only for the rich people. But when I saw Lord Krishna serving Sudama, then I came to know that no, it's not so. Lord Krishna is not for only rich, he is also for the poor people. So it makes me quite emotional, and Lord Krishna made me understand that.
Wow, you just had that realization right now in that meditation?
Yes, Mataji, I got this.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. All right, so if we had an extra hour, I could ask you all to share your meditations, but if we do that, we're gonna go really late. So I think we have to go on now to the chapter 11.
Mataji, can I ask a question about this?
Yes, sure.
Mataji, is there some stage of purity or some level at which this service is accepted by Krishna? I mean, for example, our minds are, I mean, my mind may think about Krishna at the moment, but it may have other contaminations. So, is this Manas Seva something which people at sadhana bhakti level can do? I mean, is there some level or any more inputs on this part regarding the eligibility to do Manas Seva?
Well, this is, I mean, we're talking about the 64 items of sadhana bhakti. This is Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. This is entry-level sadhana bhakti. We're supposed to be thinking about Krishna, right? Somehow or other thinking about Krishna. So we're supposed to hear the pastimes of Krishna and we're supposed to meditate on them. And we're also supposed to be cultivating the mood of serving Krishna. And so Krishna is always having some pastime. He's not just sitting there doing nothing. So when we hear a pastime, we can imagine, how would I like to serve Krishna in that pastime if I was in that pastime, right? Mother Yashoda is chasing Krishna with a stick. And, Krishna is tied to the grinding mortar. How can I serve Krishna? Imagine I'm a small child there in the household, or imagine I'm one of Mother Yashoda's helpers, or imagine I'm a cowherd boy who sees Krishna like that. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I doing? What am I saying? Or Krishna's out in the forest and he's playing games there. What am I doing? Am I watching? Am I joining in? What game do I like? What am I feeling? We should try to meditate on these things. And that's how our relationship with Krishna actually starts to become revealed, because there's some pastimes that we will feel more connected with. There's some that, when we try to meditate on, we'll just be more of an observer. We'll appreciate more from a distance. And then there's somewhere we'll be like, that's me. I want to do that. I want to do it. Like that. Arad, you get out of her?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji. Am I audible?
Yes.
Mataji, regarding this Marna Muni, I wanted to ask. I don't know whether it's the right platform to ask, but it's regarding, that Siddha Pranali thing, that what used to be there, and I mean, is it the right platform, or we can let this question go?
We'll talk about that. Comes up a couple of times in the later chapters.
Okay.
But yeah, Srila Prabhupada wasn't in favor of that. The thing is that nobody's really qualified to give Siddha Pranali. And also, if it's given at an immature stage, then it can really cause a lot of confusion. So that's not the process that Prabhupada gave. Process that Prabhupada recommended was just continue doing sadhana bhakti and wait for these things to be revealed to you. Krishna will reveal from within and it will become clear.
Yeah, but it did exist until the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and we do hear Lalit Prasad, the brother of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, criticizing him that criticizing Bhakti śāstrī Thakur, that you stop this system, and our father, it was prevalent in our father's time that you are not following your father 100%.
Yeah, because he saw what kind of havoc it was creating with unqualified people, giving Siddha Pranali to unqualified people. So it was just causing chaos. So he had to stop it.
Okay, so generally it would be the case that a qualified person only gives this thing only to a qualified disciple, lest better it's stopped.
Yeah, it actually is a real thing that's that's in the scriptures that was done previously, but because of the lack of qualification in Kali, just like so many things were done before, like the animal sacrifices and all these things, but they're not done anymore because people are not qualified to do them. They can't they can't give the animal a new life, therefore stop with animal sacrifices. Nobody can pronounce the mantras perfectly and all these things. So yeah, so our process is chant the holy names. Chant the holy names, and through the holy names, everything will be revealed.
So, Mataji, just one more question in this particular regard. So, obviously, when a qualified spiritual master would be giving this thing, so that means he would already be knowing in advance that what is the the destination of the disciple to whom he's giving. So, in that regard, like I want to ask that when Jayan and Prabhu he left body, so Prabhupada said that if he remembered Krishna at the time of death, then he would have, of course, gone back to the spiritual world, or else it might be a different case. But of course, later on, he did confirm that he did went to spiritual world. But first time Prabhupada said that if he remembered, then he would have went. So from this, it appears that although being a spiritual master, Prabhupada doesn't know the destination of Jinn and Prabhu. And what was the reason Prabhupada saying like this at that time? Was it to encourage the devotees, or I mean what?
I mean, by what he said, he made a general statement. He didn't say, I don't know if he remembered. He said, if he was just making a general statement that if anyone remembers Krishna, he'll go to Krishna. If they don't, then they'll take birth again in a devotee family and continue. So, I mean, that was very early on in the movement. So obviously Srila Prabhupada wasn't going to say something like, yeah, he became a gopi in Goloka Vrindavan, like Prabhupada, he wasn't encouraging his disciples to, prematurely think on that level, think like that, because he could see that they already had a tendency to do that. They already
That
had
Los
like
Angeles
Gopi Baba
thing.
club going on, and
Los Angeles.
yeah. So so Prabhupada was just trying to like tone things down a little bit. Devotees were getting kind of overzealous. Parama Karuna Madhava Prabhu.
Mataji, just one question in this regard, just one last thing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mataji, this this Smaranam, like we know that the ultimate aim of life is also Antanarayana Smriti, remembering Lord at the end of our last breath. But we also hear that if that when we are remembering Lord at the time of that, we should be remembering him with love and with affection, not unfavorably but favorably. Then only we can go to spiritual world.
Yeah.
But then, like if you could have heard that that Kartikeya Prabhu, Prabhupada's disciple, his mother, when she left body, she enviously asked Kartikeya, is your Krishna here also? To which replied yes, and then she passed away. And when it, told the exact thing to Prabhupada, Prabhupada said that she has gone back to Godhead, although she was speaking it enviously. So how is it possible?
I mean, we'll talk about, did we talk about this? That when it says that, I mean, this is not necessarily applicable in this case. It could be that her relationship with a devotee was enough, because like, for example, Dhruva's mother, Suniti, she also went back to Godhead, and it wasn't mentioned that she was worshiping Krishna. Even when Dhruva Maharaj asked her, where do I find God? She was kind of like, I don't know, but I know that the sages go to the forest to look for God, so you might find him there. So she wasn't she wasn't like a prema bhakti or anything, prema bhakta, but she went because Dhruva Maharaj became so advanced. And then Tukaram also, right? The story of Tukaram, his wife, she was always cursing Krishna, calling him a black snake and a rascal and destroyer of the family, and that made her husband crazy. And and she went back to Godhead with because Tukaram was such a good devotee. So it could be that. But then, but even for whenever it's mentioned that demoniac people go to the spiritual world, then we know that they go to Brahman. They don't go to Goloka or even Vaikuntha.
But in this regard, Mataji, if you see Brihad Bhagavatam, we see that there are demons also existing in spiritual world in the Goloka Vrindavan. Brihad Bhagavatamrit, when that Gopkumar, he saw some people in the body of demons. And we hear that they are there to help Krishna in his pastime, because there also these pastimes of fearful of being demon, fearful of Kamsa.
Yeah. What I've heard is that there aren't demons in Goloka, but there are rumors of demons. It's just that
I don't know exactly, but yeah, rumors also have heard. But in Brihad Bhagavatamrit, I did hear that in one of the lectures that Gopkumar was going, traveling in the Golok, and he saw a person in the body of a demon. And he also saw sadhus there in the spiritual world. Something like this. I'm not able to recall exactly, but I did hear this.
I haven't heard that. I'm not sure. I have to look it up.
Okay.
Okay, last question before we go on to chapter 11 by Parama Karuna Madhava Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. Mataji, just to follow up on my previous question, so sometimes when there are some japa retreats or workshops on chanting, this question often comes up that can we meditate on Krishna's pastimes while we are chanting? And a typical answer is that we better concentrate on hearing. So if it is very authentic to meditate on Krishna's pastime, and even to the extent of us playing a part in any such pastime, then is there a problem with people chanting while meditating on Krishna's pastimes?
It's not a problem. We shouldn't, we shouldn't we don't have to make a huge mental effort. Like, okay, you're chanting your japa in the morning, you're like, all right, which pastime should I meditate on today? Let's see. Not like that. But if something comes to your mind, you don't need to push it away, right? So just basically focus on chanting. And then whatever, if some form of Krishna comes to your mind, if some pastime of Krishna comes to your mind, if some quality of Krishna comes to your mind, then just take that as Krishna's mercy and just go with it. We shouldn't be like over endeavoring for it, but at the same time, we shouldn't be pushing it away if it comes. We should just be open to whatever experience Krishna wants to give us in the chanting. But we should always make sure that we're attentive to the chanting, and it shouldn't be like, okay, I guess Krishna wants me to think about, my pet dog today during japa. No, like that. But I don't have a pet dog, by the way. But like whatever random thing that might pop into your mind during japa, if it's not Krishna conscious, that's not what Krishna wants you to think about. But something that's actually connected to Krishna, then that's fine. It's favorable.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for all your questions and comments and sharing your experience. We're going to go on to chapter 11. So this starts with servitorship. I think I have a slide for this. I'm trying to find. Oh. Hold on. Remembrance, meditation. Okay, so chapter 11, items 47 to 53, starting with dasyam, servitorship. So there are two different kinds of dasyam or servants, and one is the karma yogi. Prabhupada starts off saying that it is said that those who are attached to ritualistic activities, that's one kind of devotee. And then there are those who are engaged in offering service to the Lord directly, and they are the Bhagavats or pure devotees. So these karma yogis, Prabhupada saying, are devotees because they offer the fruits of their work to Krishna. But they're not the first class devotees because they're still attached to their varnashram designations. They identify with their occupation, and they may gradually become pure devotees, but they're not quite accepted as pure devotees yet. And then, but they're still serving Krishna, so they're doing this dasyam practice. Then the Bhagavats, then they totally identify as servants of Krishna. They offer direct service to Krishna by the 9 processes of devotional service with their mind, body, and words. And they are, Rupa Goswami says, Jivan Mukta, which means liberated even in this body. So this is a famous verse that maybe many of you know. Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira nikila svapyavastasu jivan mukta sa uchite. He who has the desire to serve the Lord with actions, mind, and words in this world is called a liberated jiva in all circumstances. So whatever situation this kind of devotee lives in, they're liberated. Heaven, hell, or in between. Because everything that they do is for Krishna. They totally identify with being an eternal servant of Krishna. So yeah, sometimes now, because most of the way the world is and the way ISKCON is also, it used to be that if you were an ISKCON devotee, that was it. You were just like, shaved your head, you put on dhoti or sari and moved into the temple and 100% sadhana bhakti, devotional service, Krishna all the way, forget about everything else. It used to be like that. But now ISKCON has broadened its scope, and we have so many, like most devotees are actually congregational members who live outside and have their families, have their careers, outside jobs, and they offer the fruits of their work to Krishna. They give some donation, some percentage, they offer service whenever they can. And but still, and so that's also devotional service. Krishna is saying that they're also servants. But there's a difference. We still have to acknowledge that there's a difference between somebody who's in that situation and somebody who is just completely 100% directly, that everything that they do is direct devotional service to Krishna. And so Rupa Goswami is making the distinction. And it may be also that there'll be a time in your life where even if you now are engaged in, family and home and occupation, that that there's a time when you can move more into a direct service lifestyle, like vanaprastha, for example. When children are grown up, then you can retire from work and then devote yourself 100% to just serving Krishna. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Sakyam, Dasyam, Atmanivedanam, in preparation for going back home, back to Godhead. Okay, so then the next one is Sakyam, serving devotional service and friendship. And this also, there are 2 types. So there's Vishvaso, which means having full confidence in the Lord. And the other one is Mitra Vritish, which means being a well-wishing friend of the Lord. So the example of the first type is Draupadi. So she considers, Draupadi has a friendship relationship with Krishna. She's one of the few female devotees who's in Sakyaras. So she considers that Krishna is her friend. But her friendship is not like, Subal or someone who is very familiar and like plays and wrestles with Krishna. But her friendship is this first type of Vishvaso, that Krishna is my best friend. He's always there for me. I'm always there for him. He's surely going to save me. I'm surely going to serve him. It's they see more that the Lord is their benefactor and they take shelter. And then the second type is a well-wishing friend of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada says that this person is the preacher of Krishna consciousness. So it's interesting the way that Prabhupada talks about this. He says, in the Bhagavad Gita, it's said that the Lord accepts a preacher as the most dear servant. Anyone who is preaching the confidential message of the Gita to the people in general is so dear to Krishna that no one can be equal to him in human society. So the idea here is that a well-wishing, that in the first scenario, that the friend sees that Krishna is my well-wisher, and the other one sees themselves as the well-wisher of Krishna. So the preacher sees that, all right, Krishna wants his message to be spread. Lord Chaitanya wants the name of Krishna to be chanted in every town and village. So I'm going to help him. I'm going to basically do Krishna a favor by helping him. Right? I'm going to help my friend fulfill his desires by preaching. And then another example that is given is this, the pujari, who he lies down in the temple to be ready to serve Krishna. So this is something that's, it's a little, it's, the pujari is a servant of Krishna, but there's what qualifies it as sakyam is the degree of intimacy, that he feels so comfortable and familiar with the deity as a friend that, you know, when let's say he offers the noon arti and then he puts the deities to sleep, and then he also lies down there too, just behind the altar, just in case they might need something, they can call and he's there or something like that. So like that. Yeah, but there's a note here that neither of these, so we're still talking about sadhana bhakti. So neither of these aspects of sakyam are necessarily indicative of the sthayi bhav of sakya rati, like the cowherd boys have. So the second example even is still Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, although the familiarity, the informality of it may be the beginning of raganuga in the case of the pujari. Aradhi Gadadhar Prabhu?
Mataji wanted to ask that, these division of friendship, I mean, it's in which terms? Because, we hear that in the later chapters, there are, 4 or 5 divisions of worship, where some of the, there are 4 or 5 divisions of friendship, where some of the friends also help Krishna in the conjugal pastimes.
Yeah.
So what basis is, that one I can understand, but this one, what is the basis for this division?
You're talking about the divisions of like different groups of cowherd boys. So neither of these divisions is cowherd boys. It's just,
Okay.
it's just a mood, which is a little more close than dasyam. But it's not, yeah, like I was saying, it's not an inclination, it's not an indication of one's eternal rasa with Krishna. It's not necessarily that either of these two types has an eternal friendship relationship with Krishna in the spiritual world in Goloka, but just as devotees in this world, they just they have a very close relationship. They consider Krishna to be their friend. That's all. They don't see Krishna so much as, yeah, it's just intimate. What's that?
Yeah, Mataji.
Okay.
Yeah, so Mataji, I mean, for this, I mean, so this is applicable to us also, this trust and being friendly. This is applicable to all of us who are in the material world.
Definitely, this is Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Yeah, we're not talking about, Bhava bhakti, prema bhakti. We're not talking about the nitya siddhas, relationships with Krishna in the spiritual world. We're talking about, this is for us. Remember, this is for those who are currently engaged in the Krishna consciousness movement. That this is one of the items of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, that we should think of Krishna as our friend, and we should trust Krishna the way we would trust a best friend to help us out when we're in trouble. Like Draupadi was in trouble, they were trying to disrobe her, so she turned to her friend. She said, well, I got this powerful friend, he's certainly going to help me. My husbands aren't doing anything, but Krishna will. So like that. And also we should try to be a well-wishing friend to Krishna and help Krishna in his mission. That we should preach Krishna consciousness. And even if we're pujaris, we can also see that the deity is my friend. And the deity sees me as his friend because I'm always helping him, and yeah, we have a close relationship. It's not just like I'm not just this, I'm servant, but serving with affection.
Okay, and in this category, why it's said that the second category is more closer to Krishna. I mean, is more towards Raganuga than the first one. Although we see in the first there is an example of Draupadi herself, and in the second it's a pujari of a temple. So from this comparison, it appears that second one is better than the first one.
Yeah, I mean, Prabhupada mentions that about the pujari. He says, such friendly behavior of a devotee may be accepted as Raganuga or Raganuga in the sense that it's spontaneous. It's not, he's not doing that because he's following, because he was told to do that, or because it said in the scriptures that he should do that. It's a spontaneous thing that's coming from his own heart. It's not Raganuga in the sense of following after, following the wake of a particular Ragatmika Nitya Siddha devotee of Krishna, but it's Raganuga just in the sense that it's spontaneous.
So in the first case also isn't it spontaneous, Mataji, than Draupadi remembering Krishna whenever in anxiety or in any help? So isn't it applicable for first also, spontaneously?
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm asking this because here it is only mentioned specifically in regard to the second example, not the first example. So therefore it appears that first person is not much Raganuga, it's like a forceful thing.
Well, because anybody, I mean, it's kind of like a natural thing that if you accept that Krishna is the Lord, that if you're in trouble, you'll turn to him. So that's, you're turning, you have a need, and so you turn to the person that you think can help you. And you know that Krishna is your friend, he's your well-wisher, so he will help you. So you take shelter of him. But the other one is more like a spontaneous mood of affectionate service. That's why, because I think because of it's more of spontaneous affection.
Okay, thank you, Mataji.
Okay. Next here. All right, so the next one is Atmanivedanam. Offering one's own self, heart and soul. A person who gives up all prescribed activities and offers himself entirely unto me becomes the object of my personal desires. He achieves liberation from birth and death and is promoted to the status of sharing my own opulences. So this is very sweet. This is a quote where Krishna is speaking, saying that such a person who offers himself to me becomes the object of my special desires. In other words, Krishna desires that person's association, and Krishna actually thinks about that person very affectionately. So this is something that we really want to try to go for. Atmanivedanam. There's a quote here also from Canto 7. Someone like to read this, please?
The word Atmanivedanam refers to a stage at which one who has no motive other than to serve the Lord surrenders everything to the Lord and performs his activities only to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a devotee is like a cow that is cared for by its master. When cared for by its master, a cow is not in anxiety over its maintenance. Such a cow is always devoted to its master, and it never acts independently, but only for the master's benefit. Some devotees therefore consider dedication of the body to the Lord to be Atmanivedanam. And as written in the book known as Bhakti Viveka, sometimes dedication of the soul to the Lord is called Atmanivedanam. The best examples of Atmanivedanam are found in Bali Maharaj and Amrish Maharaj. Atmanivedanam is also sometimes found in the behavior of Rukmani Devi at Dwarka.
All right, so this is a good analogy to that the cow is cared for by its master and has no anxiety over its maintenance, but the cow exists for the pleasure of the master. So, and the cow has a sense that I belong to this master. This is where I go. Even if you put a cow out on the street, she'll come back. She'll always come back. Why? Because that's where she belongs. She belongs to that master. So like that, we should consider that I belong to Krishna. I'm Krishna's cow. I'm Krishna's domesticated pet. He can do whatever he wants with me. I'm just here to provide for him whatever he needs, the way the cow provides milk for the master. So, That's Atmanivedanam. And Atmanivedanam is here in the 6 principles of surrender, and it's a little bit different. Atma Nikshepa, but it's the same thing. It's complete submission of oneself to Bhagavad, to the Lord. So these 6 principles of surrender. And if you notice here in chapter 11, these items, there are 2 items that are very similar. So at least in my book on page 97, there's surrendering everything to the Lord. So that's the Atmanivedanam principle. And then if you go to skip the next 2, and the third one after this is being a surrendered soul, which is called Sharanapati. So I did some research to find out how these are different, because they both have to do with surrender, right? One is surrendering everything to the Lord, and the other one is being a surrendered soul. So I was like, wait a minute, what's the difference there? So yeah, so Atmanivedanam, if you break it down, Atma means the self, and Nivedana means offering. So it literally means offering your self-offering, that Krishna, I'm yours. And then Sharana means shelter, and Apati means entering. So it means that Krishna, you are my shelter, that entering into Krishna's shelter. So from this, we can see how they're different, that one is just totally giving oneself to Krishna, and the other is accepting Krishna as one's shelter. It's a little bit analogous to the 2 types of friendship, right? The other one is, like in the example of Draupadi, it was taking shelter of Krishna, and the other one was being like working on behalf of Krishna to help Krishna in his mission. So when we offer ourselves as servants in Krishna's mission, or servants offering ourselves to Krishna through ISKCON, through Srila Prabhupada, then we devote ourselves to serving Srila Prabhupada's mission and expanding and strengthening ISKCON around the world. So that's, I just found it nice how there's like parallels between the 2 aspects of each. So, okay, we could go back here also, because the second one here is Sharanapati, and these are the 6 principles of Sharanagati, which is basically the same thing, entering the shelter, or having take Krishna's shelter being one's goal in life. So the 6 principles of surrender you may be familiar with: accepting only what's favorable for pure devotional service, and then rejecting whatever is unfavorable; having faith that Krishna alone will protect me; having faith that Krishna alone will maintain me; and then completely offering oneself to Krishna. And Karpanya means humility, feeling oneself meek, humble, insignificant, wretched, all those things, which is what we are. I was just thinking about that this morning, that because I've been meditating on this idea that it's only by Krishna's mercy that we can make any progress in spiritual life. And so basically our position is just that we are beggars. We're just begging Krishna for mercy, and that's all we can do, is just go on begging and doing whatever we can to convince Krishna that he should be merciful to us, and then waiting for that mercy to come. So that's really our position. Complete powerlessness to make spiritual advancement, and we're just humbly serving and begging for and expecting Krishna's mercy. Okay. So then let's go back to offering a favorite article. Whatever is most desired by one within this world, and whatever is most dear to oneself. And also it should also be something that Krishna likes, and that should be offered to Krishna. So this item is very sweet because it's very personal. So it shows that Krishna wants to have a personal relationship with us, and it's actually touches his heart, or it's kind of moving for him when we give him something which he knows is very dear to us, rather than just give him anything nice. So it's got that personal touch, You know, like if you have a person who's a very good friend and there's something that you know that they're very attached to, but they see that you like it too, and so they give it to you. It's like, it's very moving, right? You're like, oh, I know how much you valued that. I know how much you really like that thing yourself. So it means a lot that you gave it to me, you know, whereas it wasn't just a random thing that that was just hanging around. There's just like in the house and they don't use. So they thought, oh, you might like it. No, it's something that they actually really like, that they're very attached to, but they give it. So it's personal. And then the next one, making, oh, let me get rid of this thing in my screen. Pop-ups. The next one is performing all endeavors for Krishna, making full efforts for the Lord. That it said, among all the Vedic and routine actions that are performed, the person desiring bhakti should perform those which are favorable for service to the Lord. So the point here is that there are many things that you can do in the name of religion, right? There's so many different prescriptions and so many different scriptures. But what Rupa Goswami here is saying is that you should do those things that specifically are for the pleasure of the Lord. Perform all endeavors specifically for Krishna, not for any other purpose. Prabhupada gives the example, a devotee who has a great establishment or factory may offer the fruits of such a material possession for the service of Krishna. Yeah, so even if you have some business or some company that makes things, so you should be very conscious that that also is for Krishna, that effort that you're putting into that is actually for Krishna. So it's keeping connected that way. And then this is the last item here. Tadiyanam sevanam. Service to things related to the Lord. Service to Tulsi. So remember we were talking about this before when the item about Tulsi came up. So that's in the category of Tadiyanam.
Prayer.
Seeing
Third prayer, Lord.
the third one, yeah. So seeing Tulsi destroys all sins, touching her purifies the body, bowing to her destroys all sufferings, sprinkling her with water delivers one from death, planting her bestows attachment of the mind to Lord Krishna, offering her to Krishna's lotus feet bestows special liberation in the form of prema. I offer my respects to Tulasi. So this is this is the one where previously it was mentioned serving the banyan tree, right? And so when we see it here in the explanation, it doesn't say serving the banyan tree, it says serving trees such as Tulasi. So, yeah. And so the idea is that Tadiyanam is anything that's related to the Lord. Banyan tree is also related to the Lord, but even more closely related to the Lord is Tulsi. And we have that nice verse from the Bhagavatam that describes how in the forest of Vrindavan, there are so many beautiful flowers. They make big, colorful, fragrant flowers. But all of those flowers, they offer their obeisances and worship Tulsi Devi. Even though Tulsi doesn't make such big flowers, her flowers maybe don't have such a sweet fragrance. And Tulsi is just a small plant. She's not big, you know. If you look into a garden, there's so many flowering bushes that catch your eye, and the last thing that you see is Tulsi, right? Like Tulsi, just a little humble little plant there with little leaves, and the little Tulsi manjari is such a tiny flower there. So, so why do all these beautiful fragrant flowering plants offer respect to Tulsi? Because they know that somehow or other she's very dear to Krishna. Because Tulsi, she did so many austerities in pure devotion to Krishna to attain association with Krishna, attain the service of Krishna. And she's also the manifestation of Vrinda Devi from Goloka, who is one of the most intimate servants of Krishna in his most confidential pastimes. So just goes to show that it's not all about the looks. Beauty isn't everything. And Tulsi's flowers may not be so beautiful, but still she's the most exalted, most honorable of all the servants. Okay. Yeah, so there's so much benefit that we can derive from serving Tulsi Devi. Just a little bit of any kind of connection to Tulsi, just touching her purifies our bodies. Bowing down to her destroys all of our sufferings. So this Tulsi Puja that we do in the morning, it sometimes seems like not a very significant thing. It's like that we think the main thing is seeing the deities and seeing the arti of the deities, and then then we do Tulsi Puja, and it's kind of like almost like a little bit of an anticlimax right after the curtains are closed and everything. But no, actually so much benefit comes from serving Tulsi. Somebody's hand was up there. Yeah, Paramakaruna Madhavakuru.
Mataji, two questions. One is a very quick question. So Tulsi Seva, the way it happens in material world, is the same as it happens in spiritual world?
Depends on where you are in the spiritual world.
I meant Vrindavan, basically.
Goloka Vrindavan.
Yeah.
I mean, in Goloka Vrindavan, yeah, Vrinda Devi is there, and also Tulsi Devi is there. They're both there. I'm not really sure, because I have heard before that in Goloka Vrindavan, there's no worship. There's something like worship. Boma Vrindavan, there's worship, right? Gopis are worshiping the sun god to get Krishna. Ayani and Rasi's worship Vishnu.
Mataji, your voice is breaking. I'm not sure if it's just me. Voice was breaking.
Oh. Is it for others also?
Yeah. Now it's okay, Mataji.
It's okay? All right. Sorry about that. It didn't.
Mataji, my question was not about worship of Tulsi Maharani, but the way we offer Tulsi leaves to Krishna's lotus feet here in the world. Is it the same there, if you read something around that?
Well, I assume so, because we have that pastime of the Kumaras when they visit Vaikuntha, and how the smell, the aroma of the Tulsi leaves from the feet of Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha enters their nostrils and causes a change in their body and mind, and they basically frees them from their impersonal conception, and they become devotees. So in Vaikuntha, Lord Vishnu has Tulsi on his feet. So we can also assume that in Goloka, Krishna has Tulsi on his feet.
Okay. Mataji, one more question I had, which was about the topic of surrender. So when pure devotees, they are completely self-surrendered, basically they are fully dependent on Krishna for their maintenance and for every outcome of their life. At the same time, we see pure devotees taking anxiety for the outcomes of their spiritual, for their devotional service. For example, in Juhu, Prabhupada was taking so much anxiety for the outcomes of the Juhu, law case, various things that were happening there. So I always wonder how these two emotions coexist together. The emotion of complete dependence and understanding that Krishna has control of everything, yet having anxiety for the outcomes that will happen. So if you can throw some light on these two emotions coming together.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I've heard that sometimes it's advised that we should pray like everything depends on Krishna, and we should work like everything depends on us. So in our service, we should think that if I don't do this, it's not going to get done. Or, I need to do this quicker because it needs to be done on time. So then there's anxiety to get it done on time, to get it done nicely, to get all the paraphernalia together, to get, assemble the people who need to be there to do it. So there's so much anxiety to get the service done because we're doing it as if it depends on us. But then at the same time, we should pray as if everything depends on Krishna and know that ultimately everything depends on Krishna. But Krishna wants me to make the effort, right? We just read that performing all endeavors for Krishna means making full efforts for the Lord. Yeah, so we need to make a full effort. And so if we're making an effort, we're trying to do something, if a spiritual master, if our temple authorities have given us a service and given us a responsibility, then we have to do it. But because in the material world, everything is difficult, sometimes, some unexpected difficulty arises. You go to cook, you're cooking, the time of the offering, everything's going well. All of a sudden the gas finishes. Then you need to find a gas cylinder, bring it in, hook it up, all that. And then in the meantime, the clock is ticking and now are you going to get the offering? There's so much anxiety, right? Or someone was supposed to do a service, they didn't show up. 15 minutes later, you find someone to cover it, or you have to run in and cover it, but now you're late and so much anxiety. So, but we read a quote about that before, about transcendental anxiety. So this is not material anxiety. This is spiritual anxiety, and it's actually a transcendental emotion when we get into anxiety about our service, about we're anxious to offer quality service.
Mataji, how does one know whether this anxiety, I'm doing it for Krishna or I'm just anxious by my personality?
Well, I mean, if you're doing it for Krishna, you're doing it for Krishna. And, maybe some people will be more anxious and some people will be more calm depending on their personality. But yeah, you just have to reflect. And the issue is not like, whether you're anxious because it's your personality. The issue is whether you're actually doing it for Krishna, or whether the reason that you're anxious is because you don't want to get in trouble. You don't want people to think you're useless. You don't want to, the anxiety should be actually for Krishna's pleasure and not for, my recognition or my admiration, my ego.
Understood, Mataji. Thank you. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Any other questions? We still have a few minutes left. Oh, actually, I need to tell you about the, before anyone raises their hand. So for tomorrow, we're going to do chapters 12 and 13. And the last 5 items of chapter 13, last 5 items of chapter 12 are the 5 potent processes of devotional service. And then chapter 13 is also only about the 5 potent processes of devotional service. So if you looked at the schedule, you'll see that the idea for this class is that you are going to do most of it. And my idea is that the whole class will be divided up into 5 groups. Okay, so 1 group for each of the 5 potent processes. And some of you may have heard me discussing with Yagya Dinishna Prabhu how to do this. So the conclusion we came to was that he's going to make 5 WhatsApp groups, and each of you are going to join one of those groups. So try to do that in a balanced way so that, let's say if there are 20 of you, so there are roughly 4 students in each group. And then, let's see, I'm going to find the schedule because I gave some details about how to do this here. Let's see if I can share. Oh, it's here. Okay. Oops. Yeah, you can see this also. So here it's it's all in one line. Can you all see that? So for 5 potent item presentations, so read the relevant sections and bear in mind that for each item, there's one section at the end of chapter 12 and another in chapter 13. Okay. And then also, yeah, also you all have Srila Prabhupada's quotes book. So read whatever quotes are relevant to your section from the quotes book. So you have 3 places that you're drawing your information from. Chapter 12, Nectar Devotion, chapter 13, Nectar Devotion, and Srila Prabhupada's quotes from the quotes book for these chapters, okay? You don't need to draw things from other sources, just keep it focused on what's said here, okay? Then in your group, you have to figure out how you're gonna meet, you know, like sometime, probably tomorrow or late tonight if you stay up late, I don't know. But meet together with your group, either if you're all living near each other, you can meet personally, or otherwise you can just meet virtually, or you can discuss it over WhatsApp, or you can have a Zoom call. You can figure that out. But prepare a presentation which covers the following things. Okay, so first of all, the benefit of the activity. Okay, so let's say, for example, you have chanting the holy names. So the benefits of chanting the holy names, and then give Shastra quotes from NOD and from Prabhupada. And you can also speak from your own experience, what benefits you have felt in your own life from chanting the holy names. And then, why is this not coming? Okay, the second thing is the results of neglecting to perform it. So the results of neglecting to chant, let's say neglecting to chant your 16 rounds or not chanting attentively. And then, I don't know, I can't see the rest of this. But the other one is, I'll just pull it up here on my own screen. And you can also see it on your own screens. Hold on. It's being real silly. There we go. Okay. So the results of neglecting to perform that item. So give Shastric evidence and also your experience, evidence from your own experience. Then the third thing is the challenges of applying this practice. So in the case of chanting, what are the challenges to chanting 16 rounds? What are the challenges to chanting attentively? And then the last thing, suggestions for overcoming these challenges. So these last things, 3 and 4, you won't find from the Shastra. That's just going to be from your own experience, or, you know, things that you can think of, what you've heard from other devotees, like that. So
all groups will get different activities?
Each group will have one, like one group will have chanting the holy names, one will have hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one will have worshiping the deity, one will have associating with devotees, and the other will have living in a holy place, living in a davana.
Mataji, how much time would be there for the presentation? And this, sorry, I think I may have missed this. The group will be created by you, or how would the group be formed?
So what, let me see if he's done it already. I don't think so. I think Yagita Nishtabru will, he'll form the groups, or he might, the way he may do it is to, you know, nominate one person to be the group leader, and then they form a group, and then invite, they add, and they can, whoever wants to be in that group, you need to text the person, and then they'll add you to the group.
Mataji, it may be simpler if let's say these groups are already created and we can just join in, because I think then there'll be a lot of confusion and communication be required to see who will join what group. That's just my suggestion. Others can also contribute to this.
I mean, I don't know, that I'm gonna leave that up to you to figure out. You can figure out your own way of making the group, and joining the groups. Is that all right? Whatever you think is best. The point is that you need to be in a group, and there need to be 5 groups for one of these 5 potent items of devotional service. And somehow or other, you need to cover these 4 things that I've given here. It may be like, for example, let's say if there are 4 people in your group and you can't meet to discuss it, you can, one person does number 1, another person does number 2, like that. And then you don't even have to meet. but you'll present. And then you can have like, I think you can have like, let's see, what do I have to cover to? You can have at least like 10 to 15 minutes to present, okay? So you'll have more time and you can cover these things nicely because these are very important. These are the main, these are like the pillars of our practice. So it's good to really appreciate the benefits, the problems of not doing it, and then to think about what are our personal challenges to performing these, and then how we can overcome these challenges.
And when you say presentation, is it literally presentation or it's like verbal presentation, or it has to be in PowerPoint?
No, it can be verbally. It might be easier to do verbally.
Yeah, of course.
Just do it verbally. Yeah, don't knock yourselves out over it because it's just for tomorrow. So you can just put some thought into it, read the chapters carefully, read the quotes, and compile, the points, and be prepared to speak. And everyone from the group should say something. So not just one person speaking, but everyone should say something, okay?
And when is this presentation?
It's tomorrow, it's next class.
Okay.
So if you break it up in such a way that, let's say you have associating with devotees, okay? So then maybe you are assigned with number 3, the challenges in applying this practice. So what are some of the challenges of associating with devotees? Then you just think about that. What are some of the problems that you have or you've seen others have with associating with devotees? And then you should probably discuss with the person who's also doing suggestions for overcoming these challenges, because they'll need to address what your challenges are. So that will require a little discussion.
Yep.
Anyways, try your best. And I was very impressed with all of your previous presentations, even though you only had 1 day's notice. You put together these very brilliant and extensive presentations. So I'm very confident that you'll be able to handle this, and you can always expect Krishna's mercy. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So just, I'll just trust you to work it out amongst yourselves with the guidance of Yajnadanishna Prabhu for how to organize your groups, okay? And communicate amongst your group members. All right, shall we call it a day then?
Yes, thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you all for
Thank you,
being-
Mataji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. We'll see you tomorrow. Nectar of Devotion ki jai. Shri
Jai.
Jai Gaur
Jai.
Hari Bol.
Mm.